Davison, who's a senior analyst at the International Crisis Group. William, has the government underestimated the strength of the TPLF? Is that regional fighting force strong enough to resist the government?
Well, of course, that's very hard to answer, and we're about to see, it looks like a crucial few days coming up in terms of testing some of the government's claims here. What we do know is that there is a willingness to fight from the Tplf Tigrayan side. There is also the experience of fighting, and they also have relatively strong firepower at the moment in terms of the regional security apparatus and the elements of the federal military they took control of. What they do not seem to have is the ability to sustain a conflict lasting many months because of the ability of the federal government to choke Tigray's supply line. So it's very hard to tell what the balance of forces at the moment, but over the long term, we can be sure that the federal government has a significant advantage.
But of course, an even longer term issue is how Abiy Ahmed goes about making sure that there's a longer lasting peaceful solution, because we've known that ever since Abiy Ahmed became prime minister, Tigray as a region has not been happy with the power sharing structure as it is in terms of the regions and the federal government. So if the government defeats militarily the TPLF, where does that leave the political solution? Because there could be continuing resentment, of course.
Well, that's exactly right in terms of that being another concern, and I would link that to the military forecasts here. Part of the government assumptions, their position is that this is a small group at the leadership of the TPLF who they are trying to defeat, therefore implying that they do not have wide support from amongst the rest of the party, the regional government, its security apparatus, and the people. That's going to be tested in terms of the military conflict. But of course, even if the federal government does manage to overpower Tigray security forces, we're left with that political problem. Again, built into the government's assumption is that the TPLF is not only unpopular in Ethiopia, but it is also unpopular in Tigray. They call it a junta, a clique, a greedy mafia, this type of thing. But some of the political dynamics we've seen in Ethiopia in recent years is the Tigrayan people rallying around Tigray region and its leadership, the TPLF, as they felt threatened, victimized, and scapegoated for Ethiopia's problems. So the concern is that this military intervention, this federal intervention in Tigray, is going to increase the support of the Tigrayan people for the TPLF leadership. That indeed would make it very difficult to achieve a political settlement and to run elections as early as June next year. And instead, we may see some sort of ongoing instability, to say the least, in Tigray region, even if the government's military ambitions are achieved quickly.
William, the United Nations said a few days ago that possible war crimes have been committed during this conflict. There was one particular incident that the Ethiopian government says its own investigators are going to be looking into. How much do you trust Addis Ababa, the administration there, to look into that one incident in which possibly hundreds of civilians were killed in a massacre?
I think what's important to understand is this conflict between Tigray's government and the federal government is the most serious expression of Ethiopia's broader political problems that have occurred over the last 5 years with anti-government protests, and then during the last 2 years of a transition under the new administration led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. During that period, we have seen numerous assassinations, mass killings, and this type of thing. What we have not seen is convincing evidence provided by anyone for a number of these incidents about who perpetrated those massacres or mass killings or who ordered the killings. At the moment, this incident in West Tigray fits into that pattern. What we really need in Ethiopia is either some form of independent investigation by Ethiopian authorities or a broader cross-section of Ethiopian actors, or some form of international intervention that can shed some independent light on these incidents which are fueling instability in Ethiopia.
William, thank you so much for the analysis. William Davison is from the International Crisis Group.